Welcome back to the Eric Krown crypto channel. Wishing you a happy and healthy start on this nice little Tuesday morning over here from Helsinki, Finland. Plenty to talk about today as Bitcoin hit our short-term time frame targets to the upside. Now, what does that sort of mean for the next 24 to 48 hours to come for the short and medium-term time frames? And then how does that also bleed on into the higher-term time frames for this week or so, let's say? Perhaps we'll reference the more long-term analysis on this. However, if you are more interested in such things, then I would definitely direct you towards the long-term analysis playlist. I'm trying to keep this video a little bit more on the short and digestible side. And yeah, if you're interested in more macro analysis, the video from Sunday is still very much relevant in the long-term analysis playlist. All right, cool. So wasting no more time, we're gonna swing back into the Krown trading application a little bit later. I want to once again highlight the significance of the global open interest among other things as well. But for right now, I think this analysis will best start with the actual price action itself. So short-term timeframes, yes, we did hit our target. But ultimately, there's another big signal kind of building up on the horizon here that can be confirmed as soon as today, probably more like tomorrow upon closure. And it's going to be on CME yet again. And it's going to be the silver cross. Now, we did identify the same sort of thing on spot price action back. I think we were using maybe this chart, perhaps, or one of these damn charts over here. Yeah, this one right here. I'm just talking about the cross between the 21 and the 55. That's the yellow and the green, respectively speaking. And yes, those do make up the silver cross in this case. Anyways, I do put significant amount more of weight. I can't also speak as well, so very embarrassing. What I'm trying to say is that I put more weight on this or anything for that matter when it happens on CME. So CME chart's doing a couple different things here that I think are very, 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 very relevant. First and foremost, yes, we do have that silver cross in the making. In order to actually have that officially cross over, if it were going to happen today, obviously it doesn't need to happen today. Even just closing around here would bring it closer for the next day to come. But in order for it to happen today, if it were to cross, Bitcoin would need to close above 52,000 and about 400. I think that's a little bit less likely, although I do think Bitcoin probably does get a shot somewhere around there at some point in the next weeks to come. But ultimately, that number will draw closer and closer upon this next closure, assuming that Bitcoin doesn't, shit the bed. Also of relevance here, as I see it sort of, spoken about rather interestingly from crypto Twitter and crypto YouTube, all this good stuff, is that Bitcoin's battling the 200 simple moving average right now on the daily, which, hey, yeah, typically does matter, absolutely. But again, if you see here on CME, Bitcoin's already above it. Again, this white moving average right here, and this one actually makes technical sense as well because it is coming right at our formation breakout out of that ascending triangle that we've been looking at for a long time. Of course, it does have targets higher with very likely stops along the way, which we'll get to soon enough. But I wanted to first reference this potential cross going on, which again, technically speaking, probably doesn't happen today. It's very much inevitable, especially as long as Bitcoin's above $46,000, let alone fucking, $44,000. But you can kind of, or at least I want to show what the historical results have been specifically on CME. And again, the reason why I keep on referencing these sorts of things, kind of back testing alongside with you in a very generic sense, is because that is, at least in my experience, where you can actually have an edge with technical analysis and trading. That's like one of the big misnomers about technical analysis. Like, can't fucking predict price, but it can give you an edge. It tells you where you have an edge. I need to make a video on that one, on that topic as well at some point, just because, man, burning stuff to talk about. Anyways, so yes, we do see this one right here, this last one to the downside. Is it timing the move perfectly? Fuck no, but it is getting the general trend for the next few months to come incredibly well. And you can see that right there, coming to the downside in December, going from, 50,000 plus to low 30s, essentially. We saw it not earlier, but in 2021, we did see it over the summer with across the upside right here between the 21 and the 55, and that stayed all the way through from basically, 38,000 to basically Bitcoin's current all-time high in this case. Same thing over here to the downside. Again, not timing it perfectly, but as they draw closer and closer to each other, the inevitable does happen, and down Bitcoin goes. To the upside, this one lasted all the way from April 2020 actually to basically the all-time high. So that was a move from about 8,000 to 65. Kind of relevant. This one over here happening right one day before, maybe 2 days before actually, the Rona dump right there. A little bit caught off guards, but yep, another big move coming off the backs of that. And then of course, the one before that to the upside, January 2020. This doesn't look like much, but it certainly was. I mean, this was next low on that cross to next major high was about a 30% move. Of course, we have this one to the downside over here, bringing Bitcoin from about 10,000 basically to that $6,000 to $7,000 number. Over here to the upside, all the way through from 4 to 14. And then, well, ever since the start of CME, I mean, it's pretty much just down. So kind of got that one very well as well. Anyways, the reason why I'm pointing this out yet again is because it does have a pretty damn good history, specifically on CME, and just another sort of confluential factor that does point northwards here, up and to the right in this case. Of course, we have other targets, that are up and to the right as well on the higher term timeframes that we've referenced on the volatility versus momentum chart. Perhaps we'll bring that out a little bit later today if it is relevant, if time allows. But what I want to do now is I want to go into the short term timeframes and essentially come up with a short term range, seeing as we've obviously resolved this region right here. I'm actually going to use a spot chart in this case just because it's cleaner right now, it's fresher. And what do we have going on right now? Well, Bitcoin did hit our target just above $48,000 for the short-term timeframes yesterday, and now I do look at this as in general just a little bit of a short-term trading range. So wouldn't mind a pullback, even down to about $46,000 right here. That's essentially how I see the range as of right now. Anything between this range, just consolidation, and another higher low, and likely to lead towards more continuation to the upside as we do have those higher-term timeframe targets that we have spoken about in prior videos. Anyways, in this case right here, I do look at full hour BBWP as relevant, seeing as we are going into a short-term contraction phase. I think that this is also consistent on the very low term timeframes like the hourly right here after hitting extremes on that last move to the upside. So Bitcoin very, very likely today to trade sideways, I would imagine. Maybe as low as 46 and perhaps even as high as about 48.5 or so. Anywhere between there, like I said, I don't see that as anything new happening. I don't call like a reversal, especially as long as Bitcoin's above $46,000, let alone like 45 in this case. And I don't call continuation on the short-term timeframes as long as Bitcoin's below about 48.2 or 48.5, whatever it ends up being. For right now, after a nice $10,000 run or more, probably going to spend a little bit of time going sideways on the short term, I would imagine. We can also go reference our short term stochastic momentum over here. And we do see that short term timeframes are very much cooked up. Again, it's not like a bad thing when it's in the very, very critical zone. Just it means it's more difficult to kind of keep that momentum, likely leading towards consolidation. In this case, 48.3 is going to be the magical number on a full hour for specifically CME. Again, I do trust CME's indicators more, especially on a Monday and a Tuesday. If we go over here to a bi-hourly, it is going to be showing downside below about 48.4. So that number coming up again, basically hourly will turn up above 47.8 or so, but again, still corrective right here is what it looks like to me. And then if we go to the medium term timeframes like the 6 hour and the 12 hour, again, very, 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 very high up here, 47,750, the magical number on the 6 hour, and the 12 hour is going to be 47,900. So a lot of things pivoted. Let's just say at an average right around about $48,000. What does that likely align with? Likely aligns with Bitcoin going a little bit sideways today. Might test a little bit of downside, somewhere around 46 low, perhaps. I think that would be fine. Perhaps even test the high again at around 48.2 to maybe even 48.5. But I do expect that we do play a little bit sideways for today. And then if there is going to be continuation, probably happens a little bit later this week, maybe around Wednesday, let's say, which I guess is actually tomorrow. So not that far away anyways. So let me just reference my notes over here to make sure that, we are on track. I should talk about what I would look for if failure were to happen. Now, I don't really think that this is likely to happen, but as always, it doesn't matter my opinion on the likelihood of it. It's just, if this happens, then the next set of probabilities become greater. And in this case, any sort of even an hourly closure below about $46,000, I would be looking for Bitcoin to come all the way down to about 44.5 to 45 after that. And try for a base there. Very likely a short-term bounce. But here is the key ingredient as to when I would consider this not just a pullback, but a failure, and a failure that's likely to, fall over, I guess, as a failure would imply. That would be below $44,500. $44,500 on a medium or especially a higher term time frame closure. And in this case, probably better to wait for a higher term time frame, like a daily in this case. As long as Bitcoin's above there, I just look at any sort of a pullback as, another higher low in the making. And again, when we're on the daily right here, daily RSI is making its first trunch into the bullish control zone for the first time since basically November. And even that time, it was just kind of leaving it at that point. Typically speaking, your first sort of entry into it after a while, you're going to get pushed back and, at minimum consolidate. And I think that's where we're kind of going to see here relatively soon. As far as the higher term timeframes go, I don't think that the move is necessarily over. I'll offer up a competing narrative for that, for what I would look to, essentially confirm that if it were. But in this case, daily BBWP, for CME, daily BBWP for spot price action right here, both trending up, both looking for continuation. So I do expect that this move does have more, maybe after a short-term consolidation, perhaps somewhere around, kind of where we're at right now. Might give one more try to 48-ish 5 first, but I do think that Bitcoin probably spends a little bit of time trading sideways there. Anyways, going back on over here, there are a couple areas based off of this, or actually no, should we talk about, I should talk about, okay, let's just play devil's advocate for a second here. What would, if this happened, let us know, be a good indication that Bitcoin is putting in a major bull trap sooner rather than later? Well, in this case, there is an indication that, it's worthwhile to be aware of, as on the weekly RSI right here, Bitcoin will have a chance to have hidden bearish divergence if, again, big if, it's not like, I don't think that this is likely to happen, but should be spoken about, if Bitcoin does confirm a local high here, or basically anywhere below like 50,000 on a higher time frame, like a 5-day or a weekly minimum. So how would Bitcoin do that? It would have to come back down and actually close below about $44,500. So until it actually does that, I think it's a lot less likely, obviously, but hey, that would make me massively bearish. This would be a bull trap. Hidden bearish divergence has targets back down towards, the mid 30s and probably lower than that over time. Possible, but I don't think that it's worthwhile or probable until that happens, essentially. Okay, cool. So where are the areas of interest to the upside on this current move? For the higher term time frames, going to get rid of this for the time being. Obviously, we're at the 382 right now. That was sort of around our generalized target based off of the breakout out of this formation right here. Obviously, we've got that one. We got a short-term continuation as well. But the next big ones are right here at about the 0.5, just under 52,000 bucks. In fact, I'm going to put a nice little blue box of peace and prosperity perhaps right there. And I would very, 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 very likely be looking for a bit of a pullback from there, perhaps even a great pullback right there. And then, of course, the technical target based off of this as an ascending triangle, which, is a bullish reaccumulation formation. And they actually do have a pretty damn good hit rate, in fact, as well, would be pointed up towards about $56,000, also in alignment with the 618 Fibonacci retracement, which is... This would be a bearish trade, yes, because this is a downtrend right here, obviously. So I want to be aware of where the potential bull trap areas are. Of course, one's kind of, a little bit lower than where we're at right now. The other one's just under 52. And then, of course, 56,000 right here. Personally speaking, I think it either comes from right here at around kind of where we're at right now. If it is going to happen, I don't think it's likely, but that's where I'd be looking for, or this area right here. And yes, this is a bearish tracement simply because, I'm measuring from high to low of this current trend right here. I just want to know where those potential major pain points would be. Statistically speaking, they're most likely to happen from this region right here if you're going to get them to begin with. Anyways, one of the reasons also why I'm a little bit on edge about current price action, or just kind of entertaining these possibilities, is because of the global open interest right here. We can see right now on the hourly feed that it is at 14.29 billion, which is higher than what we saw in December on the failed December rally to this $52,000 region right here. So what does it essentially mean in layman's terms? It means that there's more leveraged positions on the board, probably at an average price like 42 to 43,000 bucks, than there were over here when Bitcoin was at 52,000 or 51,000 bucks in December, before heading further and onwards down. So what does it essentially imply? Well, of course, we don't know that all of these are, market shorts or market longs, but based off of the funding rates right here, we can kind of get a generalized idea of it. And I would say, especially in the past couple weeks here, starting from the midpoint of March, has been a little bit more on the market long side. So, you could say that those people are being more aggressive. Obviously, right now they're in profit, so there's no real major issues with that. But let's say things were really started to come back down and violated that $44,500 region, very specific right there. There would be a major unwind from that, because anytime that we have seen open interest get above 14 billion and then some sort of downside happen, typically it's been minimum 20% and maximum some pretty catastrophic numbers there, which we don't need to talk about. But personally speaking, I do think that unwind comes from a little bit higher. You probably get something like this, where you go like that, come down, scare the shit out of everyone, put in a higher low, and then boom, back up and fulfill the final target. That's just speaking offhand here, to be quite honest with you, is kind of what I'd be looking for. if that were to happen. Anyways, I wanted to also reference this last chart over here, and we'll wrap up on this. Just, another check-in on the 5-day chart. This is the big chart that we've been looking at for the past couple of months to kind of give us guidance on a probabilistic setup for, the long term, essentially. Anyways, this is 5-day BBWP representing volatility, direction neutral indicator, but speaking towards essentially the severity of moves. Anytime that we've seen it get into the teens here, which we certainly have gotten more recently, we've seen the expansion from those levels in a very, I would say, rather uniform way in the past couple of years. And we could take it much further back than that as well. But basically, what we've seen here is we've seen on average a 45% move to the upside or the downside from that initial expansion point over the course of, on average, about 40 days. So applying that to our current setup right here, which, yes, we did confirm our first upwards tick, which, typically initiates that, and also above the moving average as well on the last 5-day closure. And we have another one coming in, not tonight, but tomorrow night, I believe. Maybe it's the night after that. I think it's tomorrow night. It's Wednesday night. This would be rather profound, saying that, this move is in progress. And I think that it's kind of obvious right here as well, right? But why I'm pulling this out is that we could actually forecast the potential targets to the upside or the downside based off of the history of this to the upside. That would be about $56,000. Very much in alignment with what we saw on the technical target right here, the 618, and of course this data right here, among other things as well, which I don't think we need to get into on today's video. To the downside, it'd be about $23,000. I don't think it's worth talking about, especially as long as Bitcoin's about $44,500, let alone about 39, let's say. So, but, if that's what's happened, hey, we can start to talk about that. I'm probably looking for that, historically speaking, again, over the course of the next month and a half or so. Anyways, 5 days stochastic momentum has also given a nice bias on the direction of this as well. We've seen, basically the direction of the stochastic momentum get the move perfectly each and every time. For the past few years here, we can even go further back than this, obviously, but first one was down, next one was up, next one was up again, then last one in December was down. All of these got essentially the right area as well. What's interesting about this current one right here, it's up and not just out of the bearish control zone, but closer to the bullish control zone than anything else. So not bad right there. Again, it's another sort of confluential factor that does suggest we do see that move come to the upside, or sorry, complete its way towards the upside. Anyways, other than that, I think this is a good place for me to leave off on this video. Maybe I'll just briefly point out for the people who stay all the way till the end. Hey, weekly Jewel turned up and has DMI support as of middle of March, and it's still going there. And also weekly volatility, the lowest that we've seen on CME almost ever, just one other time, slightly lower than that. And where's Mr. KVDB's advanced stochastic right here? And on the weekly, we're getting our first tick of DMI support alongside weekly stochastic momentum up, alongside very low volatility as well, which is kind of his version of a perfect signal. So yeah, I think that's a good place for me to leave this one off. I want to take a second to wish you well. Thank you for sticking in to the end of this video. If you find this content valuable, if you think it, if you just want to give back in some small way, liking the video is a good way to do that. Of course, that's up to you. I'm going to sign off now. Take care and see you soon.